guys, thank y'all so much for being here. I am more than excited. I'm nervous. I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. We're going to start out today's podcast with a little bit of introductions. The title is going to be Attached in College. So we're going to start with my best friend Christian right here, and then move on to my other friend right there. Take it away, Chris.
Hello, my name is Christian Sanchez. I am Jake's best friend, as he just said. I am a senior theater major here at Sul Ross State University, and in my free time, I like to read books, invest in crypto, and do online banking.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, Chris. Describe your relationship to me. How long have we known each other?
Oh, is this one of those trap questions?
It is a trick question.
I'm kidding. We've known each other about 3 years now.
3 years.
Yeah,
3 long, good years. All right, we'll move on to my next best buddy in the corner, JB.
What's up, man? I'm JB Fields. JB is the nickname. It's actually Jonathan, but everybody calls me JB. I'm about to be a graduate student here at Sul Ross. I'm looking forward to getting back into college. Let's see, I cut meat at the Brick Vault in Marathon, and
Shouts out.
I like to have a good time and party.
Heck yeah. Thanks, JB.
Thanks.
I love that. Alrighty, last but not least, my beautiful fiance, Anik Lopez.
Hello, my name is Anik Lopez. I'm a graduate student here majoring in kinesiology and health and human performance. I currently work at the Gauge and I do a couple of things. I do floral, sometimes I work on bridal, and my relationship with Jake has been going on for about 2 years, going on 2.5 years. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, man. Thank y'all so much once again for joining me today. I am so ecstatic to have y'all here. I could not pick a better crew to have a fun but difficult, emotional maybe conversation. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna keep it chill and relaxed though. We're just having fun, all of us, right?
Definitely.
And having a conversation. Alrighty. Before we get into a little bit of background and research and the fun stuff about this, let's talk about when we hear the phrase attachment style, what comes to mind? Christian, you want to go first?
Sure. I think of it conjures pictures of like actual attachment, whether that be like Velcro or like parchment paper with glue or something, along those lines. But it's just the word itself is what conjures these images of two things combining together into one.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. What about you, JB?
I'm going to go less physically, an actual different style of attachment. I think like when I think of attachment style, it's like relationships, I think. Whether you like somebody or not, or whether like their vibe is right with you, like that kind of attachment. But I don't know the actual styles.
That's all right. We're going to learn today. But hey, man, that was a great answer. Anik, we'll move on to you, Miss Ma'am.
I think for me, when I hear the word attachment, I think of it with both animate and inanimate objects. It reminds me of like a bond or something, because you can have a bond with a person, you can have a bond with an item, and I think it just describes like what type of emotional relationship and bond that you have with that thing, whether it's happy, sad, any of those things.
Excellent. That was a great answer. Thank you so much. Question number 3. Would you say you've always been someone who opens up easily, or does it take time? Christian, you want to take it away?
I honestly, opening up, I guess, if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would say that it takes me a long time to open up. But I think now I have better judgment on those who I, open myself up with, and so I'm not as afraid to open myself up with them anymore. But then that goes into like, the past experiences that, I've grown from and stuff. But I would say that I relatively am free to open myself up rather quickly compared to most.
And thank you for that. I think I appreciate your answer. And one thing I didn't hit on, that this is going to be a very vulnerable conversation. I think it takes a real man and a real woman to, be vulnerable and express their real thoughts and opinions. So I appreciate that. Yeah. JB, do you want me to repeat the question for you?
No, I think I got it.
Yes, sir.
I think I pick and choose when it comes to like being vulnerable with somebody. I'm not going to like tell my life story to some dude I just met on the street.
Right.
But like with you guys, like I know we've had some good late night conversations and like we've revealed some things, and I think doing that is like it almost brought us closer together. Whether as like this going back to the dude on the street, I'm not going to tell him my life story, and then we're going to be best buds.
Right.
Right. But like with you guys, it's like it's a good feeling that I have. Like so, I think it just kind of depends on the type of person I choose to open myself up with.
Is it fair to say that it took a genuine connection or a spark, even so to speak, before you really become vulnerable with your guy friends?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we had that New Year's party that that was a really good time, and then I didn't know you at all then, and then that night I was like, you know what, maybe Jake is kind of cool.
No, seriously.
So like it was just kind of like I don't know. I think yeah, maybe a little spark, a little kind of excitement, meeting some new people and introducing them to the friend group, and then it was just like, all right, if they're cool, I would guess I'll be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a great. I think your description of me being kind of cool is pretty accurate. So I appreciate
you're really
that.
cool.
No, I'm just messing with you, Mr. Neek. What about you? You gonna read the question one more time for you? Alrighty. So would you say that you've always been someone who opens up easily, or does it take some time?
I think for me, my vulnerability has shifted a great deal. When I first came into college and when I was younger, I definitely was extremely optimistic and like loved speaking with people and enjoyed conversating with people of like from various different types of walks. And I think throughout the years and different types of experiences, I've leaned more towards being choosy with those I want to open up with, because I now have a better understanding of not everybody deserves to know my deepest, darkest secrets, as one would say. I think I've learned to be a little bit more reserved and private, especially being in a small town like Alpine. You tell one person and then the rest of the world knows your whole life story. But I think in terms of what JB was saying, I'm a little bit of the opposite. If I meet someone and I can feel like I may not know them, but I don't know, I can learn something from them and they can learn something from me. So I think to me, being vulnerable in different ways, it doesn't have to be everything, but I think it allows you to make other connections that you probably wouldn't have thought were going to kind of fester and stuff. And that's probably when I have learned the most from other individuals, is just being myself and not being afraid to like take a leap on. So I kind of contradict myself there now that I realize it.
No,
That's okay.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I resonate with that same feeling of when I first came into college. I was super optimistic and I wouldn't say more friendly, but more willing to share all of my deep, darkest secrets with everyone, and saw everyone as a peer in that way. And whether it was an ex-girlfriend or a friend or an old friend or even a professor in class, I still struggle with oversharing, I think, in class, because I'm trying to show others how relatable I am, I guess. But now I've realized there is some power in your own privacy, and I think that it is okay to be choosy about what you share, because once you share, you can't unshare it. And I think a message, once it's released to others, it's now a shared conversation, topic, message, or whatever, that we really can't control what people do with it. So that's another reason why I think this is such a important podcast and such a vulnerable podcast for all of us. And in a lot of ways, it's very honorable for y'all all to be here, because it's not easy to sit here and talk about your love relationships and your attachment styles. Moving on, and we'll probably make this one pretty quick, what's one word you would use to describe how you usually connect with others emotionally?
Yes.
That's a pretty deep one.
One word?
Just one word you would use to describe how you usually connect with others emotionally.
Can you provide an example?
Yes, I can.
Sorry,
one word I would use to describe how I usually connect with others emotionally is assertive. I think with people that I really connect with emotionally, I am very steadfast and forward on my thoughts about them and myself, and I don't usually like to let it all hold back when I've had that emotional connection with somebody else, which can be good and bad, but I think assertive would be mine.
I would say deeply. It's funny because you don't necessarily have to have like a deep personal relationship with a person to connect to them emotionally. You know what I mean? We do it all the times with films, or whether it be live action or not. You know, we cry when we watch these films and stuff like that. And as an actor, I mean, you know, you can be on stage and just look at somebody's eyes and instantly start coming to tears or be enraged and so on and so forth, right? So I think that's deeply.
Yeah, I like that. I think deeply fits you well. What about you, JB? And if it's too tough, we can skip it.
No, it
All right.
shouldn't be too tough. I think maybe conservative would be kind of my word. I don't necessarily like, especially with people I don't know, I don't like go off the bat and be like, you know, hey, when's the last time you had a relationship? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm pretty like, you know, I meet somebody, kind of pick and choose, like kind of going back to the last question, does it take time or whatever? It's always a matter of like, who am I speaking to? You know, it's like you're not going to talk to your mom the way you would your buddies. So it's kind of, I would say conservative makes sense for me.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. Thank you for
I
sharing.
like being smart about it too.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate that about you. I think conservative is a fair description of how your emotional connection, but
Thanks.
I appreciate that. Miss Anik, what are we thinking?
I think my word would probably just be loving, because I feel like I probably say this a lot too. Whenever we're getting frustrated, I'm like, hey, you never know what they're going through. Like they could be going through a hard time. And for me, it's like I'm being raised with my grandmother. Like she really did just show me how to always be ready to hear someone out and just be open arms and an open ear, because again, like you could be their barrier in between like being heard or going back home and offing themselves, or probably not the correct term on this podcast.
No, but hey, it's a fair and truthful statement.
I think that just being loving, because I think I like to say that everyone deserves love, no matter who they are and what they've been through, what they've done to you. Like just because they did something to me doesn't mean they don't deserve love in some way, shape, or form. And we may not be best friends, but I'm at the end of the day, I'm hope I'm giving you what you in some sort of mutual respect of love and stuff.
No, I thank you so much. I mean, oh, man, that is one of my favorite, if not my most favorite quality about you. And that's something I texted you this morning, is you are a person who chooses love first in all people, and you do your best to always see the best in others. And that is a quality that is rare. And
I sure don't have it.
no, you do. Stop it right now. Because I was just about to say, the reason I chose three of y'all is not because y'all are all my best people in this world. I love y'all with my entire heart. I would fight and die for y'all in a second. And one of the reasons, you know, y'all are my friends is because y'all are all three some of the most empathetic people I've ever met. The way y'all care about others. You may not see it, but I see it. And I see that how y'all all treat everyone with the decency they deserve up front. And so I really respect that about y'all. Moving on to the next part, before we jump into the interview part, we've already kind of started that, but we're going to go into a little quick, meaningful breakdown of the theory that's going to guide our discussion today. It's going to be a detailed explanation of attachment theory in romantic relationships. And so the theory today is going to be attachment theory. And I'm quite sure that since all of our relationships have started, y'all have heard me quote this theory. I know these two have heard me the first couple years, you know, like, oh man, probably too much in some ways. JB's probably just getting more of an intro about it. But here, let's dive into it. So attachment theory was originally developed by a British psychiatrist, John Bowlby. And attachment theory started as a way to understand the deep emotional bonds formed between infants and their primary caregiver. The idea is that these early interactions teach us something essential. Is the world safe? Are people reliable? Can I count on others when I need them? Now, these early answers helped shape Bowlby's, which he called our internal working models, basically the emotional blueprints for which we carry into adulthood, especially into our romantic relationships. Furthermore, psychologist Mary Ainsworth later expanded the theory to identify three main attachment styles through her famous strange situation experiments. Ooh. So the first one being a secure attachment. People with this style genuinely feel comfortable with closeness and trust. They tend to have positive view of themselves and of others, and they can both depend on others and let others depend on them. The second being anxious attachment. These individuals often crave emotional closeness, but fear abandonment. They might constantly seek reassurance or become overly sensitive to signs of rejection, even in healthy relationships. And the third is avoidant attachment. This style is marked by discomfort with emotional intimacy. Avoidantly attached individuals tend to value independence so much that they often downplay or dismiss their own emotional needs of their partners. And the fourth style, sometimes discussed and called fearful avoidant or disorganized, which combines anxious and avoidant tendencies. But for the sake of today's episode, we'll mainly focus on the three. All right, so why does this matter? Why are we talking about attachment theories? Why are we sharing our feelings? Why are we getting into the pot about this? Why does it matter to college students in general? And honestly, well, college is a time for all of us to form most of our first serious relationships as a young adult. Romantic or platonic, it's also where we're figuring out who we are emotionally and how we show up for others. The emotional intensity of college, combined with increased independence from a family, makes it a perfect storm for our attachments to come to the surface. And here's the important part. Attachments are not set in stone. It's not a life sentence. Thank goodness gracious, because I would be done. That's all I'm saying.
No, for real.
All right. Research shows that relationships can either reinforce our current patterns or help us shift towards more secure ones. And that's what we're trying to re-explore today. How real people, like my fiance, like my two best friends, have really noticed their own attachment styles and show up in their shifts during their college years. So today we're going to have a conversation that's honest, reflective, and rooted in lived experience. And hopefully it'll help you and the audience viewers, if anybody views this, fingers crossed, how to think more deeply about the way you connect to the people that you love. So we're going to get right to the interview questions. Before we dive in deeper in these questions, I want to give everyone a chance to get comfortable and let the listeners hear your voices. We've kind of already done that at the beginning. We're going to skip on to the interview questions for the sake of time. Now that we've all gotten a bit more grounded, I wanted to shift into these questions and really get to the heart of the episode is about how attachment plays out in our relationship. I'll rotate questions between the three of you so we can hear different kinds of experiences and reflections. If you need me to go back and explain something again, completely fine. I might have to do that for myself. Or if there's a question you don't feel comfortable sharing at all, please just say, hey, I'd rather pass. Thank you. And that is a complete, respectable answer in such a intimate and vulnerable conversation. We want to make sure that y'all are all comfortable with the questions you're being asked and that you don't feel pressured to, spill your beans if you don't want to share your pot. That's a new phrase I just made up for y'all. That one's going to stick, though. I'm going to like it. Do you mind if we start with you, Miss Anique? Yeah. All righty. Looking back, how do you think your early family experiences shaped the way you show up in romantic relationships today?
Well, I'd like to say that they shaped the way I am today a lot. Referring back to the theories that you mentioned, I'd like to say that I'm definitely anxious now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that growing up, my biological father obviously has not been there and left me and my mother when I was 1. He actually abandoned us in Mexico. So there's our first abandonment issue right there. So we'll check that off the box. But I guess it really just shaped the way I show up today because and I've shared this with you many times for you guys. It's kind of like new and stuff. But like I used to be maybe like 4, 5, and 6 years old, listening to cars drive by and looking outside the blinds because my father had called me that morning and told me that he was going to come see me. So I wouldn't do anything all day long. And I would stay waiting for him to show up. And it would be midnight, 1, 2. And my mom was like, he's not coming. Like, it's okay. And so from then on out, that just kind of sets the tone for like my attachment style in my relationship today. And then bouncing back to my mom, like whenever we'd get into it, it was like silent treatment, listening to her steps. Is she an angry stepper? Is she silent stepper? Am I going to get chewed out today? Is she going to be in a good mood when she gets home? So then I get anxious on that end, which is why now I'm like so quick to assume something is wrong in our relationship, even though you could just be happily making a pancake, but you're doing it too quiet. So now I'm like, what did I do? Even though I just woke up and I haven't done anything. So I'd like to say that it definitely affected me to the point where I'm now learning that I have a lot of things that I need to go back and kind of reassess and how it's affected me in my relationship without internalizing it. Because then once I do that, it kind of just boils over. And our favorite saying is push it down, comes out sideways. And That's never fun to do when you're trying to start a new life and get ready to live your future and stuff. So it definitely shaped me to be in an anxious relationship and stuff. So yeah, I'm sure you have experiences in our relationship you can share as well.
Thank you for your vulnerability. I'm not going to try to speak on too much of my opinions about y'all, but all I know is I couldn't have asked for a better partner in this world, and we all have our own attachment issues, and it is quite respectable and honorable for you to, disclose that and be the first one. And also, if y'all want me to answer any of these questions, because I'm putting y'all on the hot seat, so if you want to put me on the hot seat, go for it. I'm going to try not to talk too much, though. Miss Anik, thank you so much. Christian, when you started college, did you notice your approach to relationships, romantic or platonic, change in any way?
Totally. So it's funny because in high school, right? In high school, I had like I guess a broader sense of confidence, if you will, or maybe, yeah, confidence, I guess. And so I would almost like, treat like relationships in a sort of transactional way. Oh, I'm we're friends, cool. But also it's a plus that we're boosting each other's popularity, right? Yeah. And then I got to college and none of that matters, right?
True.
And it, obviously in high school you're like, oh, I want to be popular.
Right.
Then you get to college and you're like, you start, life hits you literally in the face within the first week. They're like, okay, cool. How are you going to pay for college? Yeah. You filled out your FAFSA. Okay, great. You still need $2,000 whatever dollars, right? So on and so forth. So life really hits you within the first couple of days. And after that, you start realizing that popularity and status and all this stuff that sometimes it feels like we are fed through like social media, if you will, that all this stuff is deemed important to be in society. All that really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, And so I was luckily in a friend group of like 5 really solid dudes, and they all moved away now, and I haven't seen them since freshman year because COVID. And so after that, I started valuing the true relationship between my friends as well as my partners, as opposed to seeing it as, okay, we're boosting each other in some way, and like boosting each other in terms of actual physical, like, okay, cool, you're popular, I'm popular, whatever, more followers, so right?
Yeah.
But now I'm more so seeking the boost of emotional support, intellectual support, things like that, things that really matter. How can we make each other better people, better men for our families, our partners, for our society, so on and so forth.
Yeah, man, thank you so much. I think what you were talking about with popularity and the transition from high school to college, and the difference between a transactional relationship between a real empathetic relationship is key. And I think it's important to note that popularity doesn't help you show up to class. In reality, it's like the whole point is show up to class and getting the grade and going on. We're all paying for it. So I appreciate that, Christian. Now, Mr. JB, was there a moment in college when you realized something big about how you handled closeness or distance?
Yeah, definitely. So freshman year, I was kind of obviously you're alone. My first semester, I liked this girl who was in the theater department, and I had asked her out, and she was like, respectfully, no. That's okay. But I had to learn how to like kind of put my emotional feelings that I wanted to have a romantic relationship with her kind of to bed, because we were in a show together. So I had to remain super professional about it, and I couldn't be like, oh, I'm all sad because like in rehearsal, it would just tank the vibe of the whole rehearsal. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like that was one of the big things that I was kind of dealing with my freshman year, like getting rejected, and then that's always a big one, right? But like after that, it was just kind of being like being, I guess, manning up and just like being professional in the space. And from there, we became really great friends. I'll love her forever because we've become great friends. Like, not just because like we were never in a relationship like that. So, but it was good. I mean, we still talk all the time. So
It does take a true, man and a strong-willed person, not just only a man, to take a rejection on the chin and to get back out there and to not treat a person differently because they rejected you. I know I've had my fair share of moments where I have swung for the fences and missed and, struck out, so to speak. Sorry, I had the laryngitis. I got the laryngitis. I'm so sorry. And so I respect you. And it takes a real man to be vulnerable like that. Thank you. Miss Anique will put you back on the hot seat. Has there been moments in our relationship where your attachment style really showed itself? Or, I guess I should say, where my attachment style really showed itself? You can speak to either or.
I definitely would be lying if I said no, but yeah, I think my attachment style shows itself, like, I would say micrally on a daily basis. I'm sure like you notice it and stuff. And then like, I would say obviously like in the beginning, our relationship, like we were both going through really hard times, and most people would assume like, oh, they're having a hard start with each other. And it's like, we were actually dealing with trying to start a new relationship or try to accept different factors that were happening within our family balance and stuff. And I think, especially for me, like, sorry, I blinked.
It's all right. Question.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
It definitely showed itself when we were first getting together. It was, and even till this day, like I can tell you that it really shows itself. But it was really hard to try to start a new relationship while also dealing with like my stepdad, who is like my dad and raised me from when I was 4, and then just like blocked me on everything and like called it quits on me after 17 years. So that I definitely that definitely added on to not my biological father anxious attachment style, but now to like the person that I identify as my like dad. And then trying to be like, well, do people, when you say you love me, do you actually like, do you mean it? Or are you just saying that to provide me comfort in the moment, or to provide yourself comfort with knowing like, oh, well, I said I love her, so I love her and stuff. And that's not to question your love, but that's just like how I like see it on my end. And I think even till this day, like we both have been through different relational experiences that have altered the way we kind of see things, and sometimes they show a lot more in certain circumstances than they do on our day-to-day basis. But I think that's really when it showed itself more. And since I've been trying to heal from like, I didn't do anything wrong in that relationship, so it's not like anything I did. So I'm trying to take that, what I'm learning there, and apply it to our relationship, because I take everything personal. Like, if you guys don't know this, Jake can do something towards the damn pot, and I'm like, what did I do? I can pissed him off, and now he's taking it off on the pot or something. Sorry, I cussed. I hope that's okay.
It's all right. We're all adults here. Doesn't hurt my damn feelings.
No, but yeah, because I think it shows a lot. And even like, if he could be like, I guess I just am a reassurance type of lover and type of individual in a relationship. And sometimes there's days where I need a lot more reassurance, and it's not because like of anything you did, or it's not because like we're just not having a good day. It could be just because like I'm waking up and I'm like, is this real? Like it's not that I'm questioning it. It's just I'm questioning my worthiness of being able to be with you. And if I'm meeting your needs. So I guess on a day-to-day basis, it shows on a micro level, but I would say in the beginning of our relationship, and learning to work through that loss, because it is a loss, is how I see it, and learning how to lose but love still.
I'm so sorry, but man, thank you. I know I don't have to say that. Well, let me just say, you're the peanut butter to my jelly. All right.
Okay.
And I'm saying that in full, with all good spirits. I similarly struggle with my anxious and avoidant tendencies, and you and I have shared and bonded and gone through the trenches, so to speak, and come out on the other side and it's sunshiny rainbows. But we also know that, it's a journey every day. And I think it's so easy in the day that day and age that we live in, with social media and stuff. It's like, oh, you got trust issues. It's like, do I have trust issues, or does trust take time? Does trust take experience? Does love take time? I mean, I know from the moment I met you, I was in love with you with my entire heart. But that didn't mean that I could just have you right then. I mean, it took time for me to talk you into this whole relationship and sell myself a little bit and do a little song and dance. But I can attest our relationship at the beginning was rocky, and it had little to do with us and our connection, and more so to do with our families, our familial experiences that we had been through for at least the last 20 years of our lives. And not only that, on top of that, we had a lot of pushback from the university. I'm not going to get too specific about that, but if anybody wants to ask more, I'd be glad to share. I know that was something that put a significant strain on our relationship. That was something completely out of our control.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have their own opinions, thoughts, and feelings. And we sure as hell got the brute end of that when we got together.
Everything that you could imagine. It was like the world was trying to tell us, but we're like, but we don't, why? Like, what did we do to deserve all this pushback? And we're like, it's not anything we did and stuff. It was crazy. But I feel like you should share a little bit more about your attachment style. Since we're talking a lot about our relationship, I feel like maybe the audience would love to hear yours.
All right, let's get it. Man, am I an anxious mess? No doubt. When I say that, when we first, I think I've gotten better. I know I've gotten better, but when we first got together, I'm a very much I love you person. Before I hang up with any of y'all on the phone, I say I love you, bro. I love you, bro, because I don't know when the last time I might be able to get to see y'all, and I need y'all to know in that moment that I do love y'all. And despite what I say and how I act, I have so much love for every one of y'all. And some of that comes from my childhood. I was adopted in middle school. My biological father and my mother split up when I was, 4 or 5. And my biological father was extremely abusive to me and both my siblings, including my mother. So I witnessed a lot of severe abuse, physical, mental, and emotional abuse from a young age. And that creates a real angry individual, an individual who seeks justice. Sometimes Anik calls me the Justice Eagle when I'm getting on my rants, because
at least one Justice Eagle.
I can get one Justice. I'll get it like that, right when I'm needing it. Trying to lighten the mood, but over the years that has created, I catch myself being anxious, and what does that look like? Well, if Anik left the house when we first, I love you so much, be safe, text me, yada, yada. And we both do that, texting each other the whole time. And like, we need that constant affirmation from each other. But where did that come from? It's like, not only did it, I was adopted in middle school, and most people think, okay, it was smooth sailing. You had a good stepdad that raised you after that. And for the most part, yeah. And to be a little more disclosive of my personal experiences, some things happened as a young adult in high school. In reality, my mom was affected heavily by the opioid epidemic. So she was, highly addicted to opioids from the time I was in middle school till the day I graduated high school, she went to rehab. So that day, and so I didn't get to see my mom for, 9 months. And it was one of those things, like, I knew behind closed doors, but nobody said anything about. And it's hard to watch an individual die on you every day. And it's hard to watch someone that you love that, was there for you, that was my hero, overdose in front of you I don't know how many times. And, you can shake her awake from night terrors and stuff like that, but it doesn't do anything at the end of the day to show you, I felt loved or I was cared for, and in reality, I graduated high school and I became very angry because I was like, what the hell? My mom's been completely absent emotionally, and so is my father in a lot of ways, and my stepdad, adopted dad, in a lot of ways. And I was having to deal with that while also going to college and trying to excel and, be the person I am today. And that was something that I took into my relationships heavily. And it affects me to this day. I go through good days and I go through bad days. I'm having nightmares. I'm doing my thing. And it's probably never going to stop. Will it get better? Of course. And do I have faith? And do I have a strong, group and support of people? Not only of y'all right here, but I've had mentors that have really helped me out through this, to keep me going. And I've really, the reason I talk about this theory is largely to do with some of my life experiences. And boo-hoo me, all right? Everybody's gone through this, and if not, times 10. I know I haven't gone through the worst things in the world, and I know there's others, and there's people listening to this podcast right now that have gone through much, much, much worse. And that's just a little piece of who I am. And I know each and one of y'all have had y'all's own stories and, traumatic experiences that have really shaped who we are today. But that is really where some of my attachment styles come from. And it is an ever evolving process that will always continue to hopefully change and grow as long as I am addressing it and checking on it and realizing it. And it's just like going to the gym. Like, if you want results, if you want a six pack, if you want to lose weight, you got to work on it. And it's, it's not just the hour you spend in the gym, it's the rest of the 23 hours in the day that you spend eating food and sitting down or staying active. So your attachment styles and your romantic relationships and how those two combined are the same way. I can read a book to y'all one day. I can read, I'm blue in the face about attachment theory, but it takes an active participation, and it takes your own, will to really work on that. So that's enough of me talking. Did y'all have any questions or anything y'all wanted to add to that? I mean, I know it's a pretty hard topic, but if y'all want to, jump in, feel free.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for allowing yourself to be vulnerable in this setting with us,
Thank you, guys. Next question, we're going to go on to Mr. Christian. Do you think people our age realize how much early family or childhood experiences shape how we trust others?
Ooh-wee. Well, you know the answer to this question. We've talked about this multiple times, but no, they really don't. They really don't. And I'll use the example of my own mother, right? My mom, she is 47 now.
Nice.
46. She's 46. She's 46. And, I've had conversations on topics like this with her. And, she's told me before multiple times growing up that she doesn't have memories of below the age of 11, I believe. Anything from that is totally gone. She doesn't remember anything. And, she's tried and tried and tried, and she has pictures, like my grandma has pictures of like them doing stuff, but she doesn't remember anything. And it wasn't until I would say probably a year ago that she actually had a memory, and she remembered. And it wasn't a great memory, but she thinks that all the stuff that happened within those years is what now impacts her as an adult in the way that she shows love and how she is, going through the world, my mom and my pop. So my mom and my biological father, they didn't pan out. They separated whenever I was in the womb. I haven't seen him ever, I think, at least not that I remember. But and then my pops, that's what I call him, my stepfather. He had been chasing my mom for years, years. And finally, my mom was like, "Okay, fine, I'll let you take me on a date." Cool. And then, ever since then, they had stayed together. So my pops, he's been in my life since I was 3 years old. And, the way that they are together makes a lot of sense, because it's the same relationship almost to a T that my grandma and my grandfather are, right? And it wasn't until maybe 2022 that my mom finally made this realization, and she finally, by the grace of God, left that relationship, because it was super harmful, granted, thankfully, nothing physical, but just the immense emotional and mental and spiritual strain that, was brought on her that she didn't have to go through. But it wasn't until I was having a conversation similar to this, because I think we had a conversation, me and you, Jake, about this very topic. And I presented that to her, and she's like, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." And so do people our age, realize how much it affects them in their waking life? No, not at all. I don't think we do at all. And even if we are made aware of it by some outside source, whether it be a friend, whether it be a book, or so on and so forth, I think it's not going to be until we are actually older that we finally grasp the entire concept itself. Because even though we are made aware of it and we see the effects that it can have, we most likely are going to fall into the pattern of still making the same, whether it be mistakes or choices, whatever you'd like to call them, because even though, I now, as a 24-year-old man, even though I know that the way my parents were together affects me now, I still do the same things that my mom does in a relationship, and because of that, I'm like, well, great, I'm aware of it. Yeah, still make the same choices.
Is that because like you've seen her do, like you do what your mom does because you've seen it, or is it like
I think
you think it's inherited in genetics or something like that?
so. As far as inherited, possibly, just because like there's some brand new studies going around. Granted they're relatively new, but they're saying that the way your mental health is now might be possibly genetic. Which is nuts. It goes down to mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
If you didn't know.
But yeah. So as far as inherited, I don't know, but it's the only example that I can see of love that I saw on a daily basis. And it's funny because my entire family, on my mom's side, the one that I have been around the most, they're all the same. They're all the same, just a bunch of like talking over each other, yelling, all that stuff, but the thing is, like, it's like super low valleys with small peaks, right?
Yeah.
But when the peaks are there, it's like amazing, the most romantic love. Like, I remember my dad coming home for Valentine's Day. I was probably in the 4th grade, and he had, I'm not even joking, like 100 flower bouquet for my mom. Nice. And I was like, ever since then, that's what I've chased for, right? To be that kind of romantic person, that kind of romantic man. But I have the same love qualities as my mom, giving people the benefit of the doubt, allowing people to almost use me as a doormat. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And because of that, I now am trying to strive to be not better, but better about things like that. Standing my ground and having boundaries and so on and so forth, which is something really new because I've never had those. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think you really said it well, and I appreciate you sharing your real experiences. And I think that's one thing I wanted about this podcast. And I mean, it's something that's, everybody shares their opinions these days, but how real is it really? And I don't think we're just sitting here crying and saying, feel sorry for me. We're having a constructive conversation that's surrounded by love.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. JB, do you think that having strong friendships can sometimes help balance out insecure romantic relationships, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think relationships can definitely be one-sided, and somebody can, I guess the insecurity in that relationship, you can kind of balance that out by having that strong group of friends. You got to have it's almost like you got to have your church or your place of sanctuary. And for me, definitely, it's like hanging with my people. Like, I can have a vent session where I can get it all out and be like, oh, they're pissing me off or whatever. And then I can get different perspectives. Like, you can tell me, oh, well, maybe you're doing this. And then you'd be like, nah, screw that. She's doing it, or they're doing it, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think having that balance, like, I mean, obviously it's not going to work every time,
right, but
like, you can still feel bad about yourself or the relationship after you get done hanging with your people. But like, for the most part, I think it's good. I'm the type of person who needs to kind of like, I can vent for hours. You guys haven't really experienced that yet because nothing crazy has happened yet. But since I've been back, I think having the strong group of friends is definitely a one-up, and I think both parties need to have that, so they can, you both can leave the space and be like, all right, they're doing this, they didn't wash the dishes, or something small like that. But or it can be bigger, but having that group of friends to really kind of ground you and kind of keep your head level, like I think that helps a lot. When I was, let's see, what was it? We were living together, Christian. It was
2019, 2020.
yeah. So around 2020 during COVID, you didn't have that. I was in a relationship and they were living with me, and I didn't have a space to go to like go vent or something. I would have to go in the other room and be like, hey, they're pissing me off, or whatever.
I'm going crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that kind of, some of those factors led to the downfall of that relationship. But, I mean, there was a million other things I could go on and on about. But not having that friend group around me and, like, people I could just, like, talk to and that weren't our roommates, I think that, didn't help that. But I think it would help now. Because obviously we're not dealing with COVID anymore.
No, I agree with you. I think that, the research shows that we need friends, we need social interactions with others in our relationships, and it takes off the hot seat off of your partner as well, in a way. Like, if I was putting all my insecurities on Anik, then I would probably be the worst, fiance ever. And in some ways, there's a fine line between me disclosing private information between me and my relationship and me complaining about my fiance, and then me complaining about myself or using my friends as a soundboard, like, hey guys, I really messed up. I've said this and I've said this and I need y'all to hold me accountable. Or, and also to that, I think the love that you can receive from your friends, it alleviates from putting, especially if you have an anxious attachment, it takes away some of that constant need for love from your partner. Like, and for me, myself at least, like, without y'all, it would be, just Anik and I every day, all the time. And she can't be my only love source, and I can't be her only love source.
Right.
We have to be loved by others and share and spread that love outward as well. So I think we're on the same page with him.